The sun was just rising over the streets of Manila when the blonde Ukrainian woman stepped off the plane, her hair shimmering gold in the soft morning light, blue eyes wide with curiosity and a hint of nervous excitement. She had arrived with little more than a backpack and a sense of adventure, but what she did not realize was that the Philippines would test her heart, teach her laughter, and show her a type of kindness she had only read about in stories. Her first steps outside the airport were greeted by the bustling chaos of taxis, jeepneys, and pedestrians, all moving with a rhythm that seemed foreign at first, but soon revealed a hidden harmony. She clutched her small notebook where she had scribbled phrases in Tagalog she hoped to remember, smiling nervously as she tried to greet the first stranger she saw with a timid, "Magandang umaga." The stranger, a middle-aged man selling balut from a small cart, looked down at her, squinted for a moment, then broke into a warm grin. "Good morning. New here, yes? You want try balut?" Her heart skipped a beat. Balut, the infamous Filipino delicacy. She had seen videos of tourists attempting it and laughing, crying, and gagging all at once. She nodded hesitantly, trying to muster courage. "Yes, I try." The man laughed heartily, the kind of laugh that filled the busy street with warmth. "Ah, welcome, don't worry. You'll survive. Maybe even love it." That was her first taste of the Filipino spirit, humor, patience, and a quiet insistence that strangers be welcomed like family. As she tasted the balut, awkwardly holding it in her delicate fingers, she realized she was not only learning about a new food, but also learning how to laugh at herself. The man clapped her on the shoulder and winked. "Brave! Very brave!" And she could not help but giggle. Later that morning, she attempted to hail a taxi, fumbling with her Tagalog phrases and the local map app, only to realize she had entered the wrong side of the street. A young Filipino woman noticed her confusion and came over. "Where you go?" she asked, her English tinted with a melodic Filipino accent. The Ukrainian woman tried her Tagalog, stumbled, and ended up pointing at her map. The Filipino woman laughed softly, nodded, and then said, "Follow me. I take you to right taxi." Walking behind this stranger, she felt an unfamiliar warmth. Here was someone willing to help her simply because she was a newcomer, without asking for anything in return. On the way to the correct taxi, the young woman chatted with her about life in Manila, about the best places to eat, and where she could find affordable accommodations. The Ukrainian woman marveled at how quickly she felt a sense of belonging, even in a city she had never set foot in before. Her first week was a whirlwind of discoveries. At a small neighborhood eatery, she was invited to sit with a family who had noticed her confusion while reading the menu. The grandmother insisted she try the sinigang, the father brought extra rice, and the children watched her eagerly, waiting for her reaction. When she finally tasted the tangy soup, she made a face that combined surprise, delight, and embarrassment. The children giggled, and she joined in, realizing that in this household, laughter was as important as nourishment. Every day brought a new lesson. The Filipino habit of offering a seat to strangers on the jeepney, the insistence on sharing food, the cheerful insistence that she try every street snack she passed. All of it built a sense of trust and connection she had not experienced before. She was a foreigner, yes, but she was slowly becoming part of a story that valued human connection above everything else. One afternoon, while walking through a crowded market, she tripped over a loose tile. Before she could regain her balance, two young men had lifted her up, dusted her off, and joked, "Careful, miss. You're gonna conquer the market too fast if you fall." She laughed, embarrassed, but inside she felt an overwhelming gratitude. She had grown up in a society where politeness was often formal, where assistance could be transactional. Here, help was genuine, spontaneous, and wrapped in laughter. Even mundane errands became small adventures of kindness. At the sari-sari store, she tried to pay for a bottle of water and was told by the store owner to "Keep it. Welcome to the neighborhood." At first, she insisted, but the warmth in the man's smile melted her resistance. She began to understand that Filipino kindness was not just about manners, but about a deep-seated culture of care and human connection. By the end of her first month, the Ukrainian woman had formed a small circle of friends, neighbors who offered her advice, a vendor who always saved her favorite snack, and even a street musician who shared his lunch with her. Each interaction taught her a lesson about humility, generosity, and the joy of accepting help as freely as it was given. Her blue eyes often sparkled with laughter, sometimes filled with tears, as she recounted stories to her journal each night. She wrote about the little old lady who had given her a hand-sewn tote bag, about the kids who insisted she join their street basketball game, and about the couple who invited her to a family dinner simply because she seemed lonely. Every day was a comedy of errors, from mispronounced Tagalog words to accidentally stepping into the wrong festival parade. But in every mishap, there was warmth and encouragement. People laughed with her, not at her, and the difference made her heart swell. She learned to navigate the crowded streets, the labyrinthine jeepney routes, and the chaotic markets. But the most important lessons were about people. A simple smile could start a conversation, a shared snack could start a friendship, and laughter could erase the fear of being an outsider. By the time she had spent 2 months in the city, the blonde Ukrainian woman realized she had been transformed. Her perspective on life shifted from the structured predictability of her home country to a more fluid, human-centered understanding. The Philippines had not only welcomed her, but had shown her a world where kindness was abundant, humor was essential, and every stranger could become a friend. One evening, as she watched the sunset from a rooftop overlooking Manila, she scribbled in her journal, "I came here looking for adventure, but I found a family. Not by blood, not by law, but by the warmth of hearts, willing to open for no reason at all." The story of her early days in Manila was a blend of comedy, awkward missteps, and heartfelt human connection. From tripping over market tiles to accidentally joining a fiesta parade, every moment became a memory she would treasure. And all the while, the kindness of strangers who became friends, continued to shape her understanding of what it meant to belong. In the laughter of children, the teasing of neighbors, and the gentle guidance of friendly strangers, she discovered something she hadn't expected, that belonging could be found not in places, but in the people who choose to care for one another. Her blue eyes glimmered as she packed away her journal for the night. She knew tomorrow would bring more stories, more lessons, and more laughter. She had entered Manila as a tourist with curiosity and left with a heart forever touched by the generosity, humor, and warmth of the Filipino spirit. The blonde Ukrainian woman had grown more confident navigating the streets of Manila, yet every day still held surprises. The city's energy pulsed around her like a heartbeat, and she felt herself being drawn deeper into the rhythm of Filipino life. She had learned the jeepney routes, could bargain at the markets without losing her wits, and had even mastered a few Tagalog phrases beyond the basics. Yet, despite her growing competence, it was the kindness of strangers that continued to astonish her. One humid afternoon, she decided to explore a part of the city that tourists seldom ventured into. The narrow lanes of a residential neighborhood filled with small shops, colorful murals, and children darting between houses. As she walked, her backpack swinging gently, she noticed a group of kids struggling to lift a heavy sack of rice. Instinctively, she rushed over, offering to help, only to realize that her strength alone was insufficient. Before she could protest, the local neighbors appeared, smiling and laughing, and together they lifted the sack with ease. "You are strong for a foreigner," one of the men joked, patting her shoulder. She laughed, feeling the warmth of inclusion wash over her. It was a small moment, but it carried the essence of what she had been learning, that in the Philippines, strangers never remained strangers for long. Later that day, she stumbled upon a small community clinic. Curious, she peered inside to see a line of patients waiting patiently. An elderly nurse noticed her and beckoned her in. "You want to see?" she asked in English. The Ukrainian woman nodded, and the nurse gave her a quick tour, explaining how the clinic provided free checkups for children and elderly residents. The volunteer doctors offered her a cup of warm tea, insisting she rest before continuing her walk. "I've never seen this much generosity," she murmured, sipping the tea. She had traveled extensively across Europe, but the Philippines' combination of humor, humility, and genuine care felt different, raw and unpolished, yet radiant. The evening brought another lesson. She was invited to join a street basketball game by a group of teenagers she had met earlier in the week. The court was dusty, the hoops old and bent, but the energy of the players was infectious. She had never played basketball seriously, yet they encouraged her with laughter, teasing, and relentless support. Every missed shot was met with a "Saj, try again," and every lucky basket was celebrated as if it were a championship win. She found herself laughing until tears ran down her cheeks, not from frustration but from joy. Here, community was everything, and she felt its embrace in every pass, every cheer, and every high five. By the third week of her second month, she had begun volunteering at a local daycare. Initially nervous, she quickly discovered that her presence was welcomed not as an outsider, but as someone willing to participate in their daily lives. She read stories to children, helped with arts and crafts, and even learned traditional Filipino songs. The children were curious about her blonde hair and blue eyes, and she learned to answer questions with humor and honesty. Yes, I am a foreigner. Yes, I eat different food. Yes, I still don't understand all the words you say, but I love singing with you. The joy in those children's faces became one of her most treasured experiences. One day, as she tried to help a shy little girl draw a sun on paper, the girl looked up at her and said in broken English, "You like us?" She smiled and replied, "Of course I like you. I like all of you." The little girl's eyes sparkled, and in that instant, the Ukrainian woman understood that kindness was reciprocal. It created connections, no matter the language or background. Her adventures weren't always perfectly smooth. There were mornings when she got lost in the labyrinthine streets, afternoons when the heat drained her energy, and moments when her attempts at speaking Tagalog led to hilarious misunderstandings. She once tried to ask a vendor for a simple snack and accidentally requested 10 times the amount, leading to a burst of laughter from both the vendor and nearby shoppers. Instead of embarrassment, she was met with encouragement. "See ya, take it all, share with your friends." The humor and generosity of strangers continued to reinforce her sense of belonging. One particularly rainy afternoon, she took shelter under a small awning beside a sari-sari store. The vendor, noticing her soaking wet hair and shivering frame, handed her a towel, a cup of hot chocolate, and insisted she stay until the rain subsided. "Rain no problem," he said with a grin. "Here, you warm now." She sipped the hot chocolate and realized that this small gesture, seemingly ordinary but profoundly human, exemplified the Filipino spirit she had grown to love. Her blue eyes often reflected the city's kaleidoscope of experiences: laughter, curiosity, warmth, and occasional frustration. But each day reinforced a simple truth. The people of Manila, from toddlers to elders, seemed to intuitively understand that small acts of kindness could transform lives. During a festival celebrating a local barrio's founding, she was swept into a dance circle, her blonde hair bouncing with every step. The community handed her a woven sash and insisted she join the traditional dances. She moved awkwardly at first, unsure of the steps, but was met with laughter and guidance rather than judgment. The children held her hands, the elders clapped, and by the end of the evening, she felt as though she had truly been welcomed into this tiny but radiant slice of Filipino culture. Even simple walks became adventures. She discovered that offering a smile to passers-by often led to conversations, invitations, or just shared laughter. One afternoon, while wandering through a local market, she accidentally knocked over a basket of mangoes. Before she could apologize, a vendor scooped up the fruit, handed her a smile, and said, "No worries, miss. Happens to everyone." She was struck again by the unassuming warmth. Here was patience, not impatience, care, not irritation. Her days were punctuated by street music, laughter from children, and the hum of Manila life, all of which created a soundtrack that felt like home. She began to understand Filipino values not through books or guides, but through lived experience. Generosity without expectation, humor as a bridge, and community as a central pillar of daily life. By the end of her second month, she had been invited into homes for meals, offered rides by strangers during rainstorms, and even taught a local family a few phrases in Ukrainian, which they repeated with laughter and delight. The exchange of culture, food, and stories became a tapestry of shared humanity that transcended nationality, language, or background. She often reflected on the stark contrast between her life back in Ukraine and her new experiences in Manila. In her home country, kindness was often structured and measured. Here, it was spontaneous, exuberant, and unafraid. It was in the laughter of children playing on the street, the cheerful teasing of market vendors, and the quiet generosity of strangers who treated her like family. One evening, She attended a neighborhood celebration where families gathered to share food, music, and stories. She watched an elderly woman serve steaming plates of adobo while children ran around carrying trays of pancit. She laughed alongside everyone, tripped once while trying to catch a plate, and was helped up by a young man who patted her shoulder and said, "Careful, miss. You part of us now." She felt a lump in her throat, a mixture of gratitude, joy, and the realization that she had found a second home. That night, as she scribbled in her journal beneath the soft glow of a kerosene lamp, she wrote about the countless small acts of kindness she had witnessed: the vendor who offered water to a sweating passerby, the child who shared his toy, the stranger who guided her through a maze of streets. Each act was a thread in a fabric of humanity that she had never truly understood until now. By immersing herself in the daily lives of Filipinos, she discovered a simple yet profound truth: kindness is contagious. The more she accepted it, the more she gave it. Her laughter became louder, her patience deeper, and her ability to connect more genuine. Every day was both a comedy and a lesson, and in those moments of chaos, warmth, and shared humanity, she understood that the Philippines had given her something far beyond travel experiences. It had given her perspective, connection, and a heart expanded by generosity. Her blue eyes often glimmered with tears of joy or laughter as she recounted stories to herself at night. The children insisting she join a sidewalk game, the elderly neighbor offering her leftover lunch, the musician handing her a coconut juice with a wink and a joke. The lessons were small but infinite, and she carried them with her everywhere, realizing that she was no longer a visitor. She had become part of a living story that celebrated human connection above all else. By the third month of her stay, the blonde Ukrainian woman had settled into a rhythm of daily life that blended curiosity with familiarity. Manila's streets were no longer intimidating mazes, but lively tapestries she navigated with ease, each corner offering a new lesson in warmth, humor, and humanity. Her days were filled with spontaneous encounters, each one more heartwarming than the last, and she had begun to notice subtle shifts within herself. A lighter laugh, a more open heart, and a growing sense of belonging that transcended language or nationality. One morning, as the sun spilled golden light across a quiet neighborhood, she wandered into a local park where children were playing traditional Filipino games like luksong baka and pico. Their shouts echoed across the open field, carrying energy that was both infectious and grounding. She paused to watch, her blue eyes reflecting awe and amusement. A little boy, noticing her foreign features, ran over and tugged at her hand. "Play with us," he demanded with a grin. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she would manage the steps or rules, but the enthusiasm was contagious. Within minutes, she was hopping, laughing, and occasionally tripping in a way that drew giggles from the children. Strangers passing by smiled, some cheering her on, others offering tips in broken English. She realized that in the Philippines, encouragement and kindness were rarely calculated. They were natural extensions of human connection. After the game, a small group of parents invited her to share breakfast with them on the park benches. They brought out rice cakes, sweetened peanuts, and cups of warm coffee. She had been eating local foods daily, but here, the food was more than nourishment. It was a symbol of inclusion, a tangible expression of the community's willingness to embrace her. She laughed as she fumbled with sticky rice, and small hands offered her help, showing her how to eat in the traditional way. Her adventures in public spaces soon gave way to more intimate experiences within Filipino homes. She had been invited by a family to spend a weekend in their modest home on the outskirts of the city. Their hospitality was overwhelming. She was offered her own room, blankets, and a variety of dishes she had never tried before. Over meals of adobo, sinigang, and halo-halo, the family shared stories of resilience, humor, and love, often breaking into laughter at small miscommunications or playful teasing. The Ukrainian woman noticed a pattern. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, carried a ripple effect. When she complimented a child's drawing, the child ran to show it to a neighbor. When she helped carry groceries, the vendor offered her a free treat. Every interaction, she realized, was a thread in a larger tapestry of Filipino culture, a network of care and human connection that elevated ordinary life into something extraordinary. During her stay, she encountered moments of challenge as well. One afternoon, while exploring a local market, she witnessed a minor accident. A woman tripped over a basket and fell. Instantly, people rushed to help. Not just the woman who had fallen, but bystanders who offered first aid, comfort, and even purchased ingredients from the market for the family who had dropped their goods. She was struck by the seamless nature of these collective responses. In the Philippines, helping one another was instinctual, immediate, and heartfelt. Her emotional growth was equally pronounced. She found herself more patient, more empathetic, and more attuned to the subtleties of human behavior. The warmth of strangers had become a mirror, reflecting the capacity for kindness that had always existed within her, but had been dormant in her fast-paced life back home. She laughed more freely, offered help without hesitation, and allowed herself to be vulnerable in ways she had never experienced. One particularly memorable evening, she attended a neighborhood fiesta celebrating a local patron saint. The streets were alive with music, colorful decorations, and the hum of conversations. Children darted around, vendors shouted their specials, and families gathered in front of their homes to share food and laughter. She was swept into the celebration, helping with a cooking station and learning traditional dances. Despite her initial awkwardness, she was met with encouragement and cheer, and by the end of the night, she felt a profound sense of connection to people who had only recently been strangers. She began documenting these moments in a journal, writing down not only the events but the emotions they evoked: joy, surprise, gratitude, and humility. Her entries revealed a transformation, a realization that life as richness often lay not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent acts of kindness and connection. She marveled at how these experiences contrasted with her life in Ukraine, where politeness was often reserved and interactions measured. Here, warmth and humor were abundant, unpolished yet authentic. Her interactions also deepened in complexity. She began helping with community projects, teaching basic English to children, and assisting local vendors with simple marketing strategies. Each act of service was reciprocated with laughter, advice, and heartfelt appreciation. She noticed how Filipino culture emphasized reciprocity not as obligation, but as a natural exchange of goodwill. Every smile, every nod, every shared meal reinforced her sense that she was part of something larger, a living, breathing community that valued human connection above all else. Even in moments of solitude, she felt the echoes of kindness surrounding her. Walking along the bay at sunset, she observed fishermen sharing the day's catch, neighbors chatting across fences, and children playing in the sand. Each scene reminded her of the generosity she had witnessed daily: the vendor who insisted she take extra snacks, the neighbor who offered her a ride in the rain, the children who insisted on showing her every corner of their playground. It was as if the spirit of the city itself had adopted her, offering comfort, guidance, and companionship in ways both subtle and profound. She also began noticing the emotional depth that accompanied these acts. In the Philippines, humor and joy were often intertwined with resilience. Families who had faced hardship smiled readily, played games despite limited resources, and treated her with genuine warmth. She reflected on how this resilience, paired with kindness, created an atmosphere of hope and belonging that was almost tangible. It was a culture that celebrated the human spirit, even amid challenges, and she found herself inspired daily by these lessons. Her growing fluency in Tagalog allowed her to engage more deeply with the culture. Simple phrases like salamat or kumusta ka carried layered meanings beyond mere translation. She laughed at misunderstandings, once accidentally telling a vendor she was pregnant instead of expressing gratitude. But each mistake was met with gentle teasing rather than judgment. These moments reinforced the idea that language, humor, and kindness were intertwined, forming a unique social fabric she had never encountered before. One afternoon, she accompanied a group of locals on a volunteer mission to rebuild homes damaged by a storm. She carried supplies, painted walls, and shared food with the workers. The physical labor was exhausting, yet the camaraderie was exhilarating. Laughter echoed as they shared stories, teased one another, and offered encouragement. By the end of the day, the homes were visibly improved, and she realized that the act of helping not only transformed the physical space, but also deepened emotional bonds. Her most profound realization came during a quiet moment atop a hill overlooking the city. The sunset painted the skyline in gold and crimson, and she reflected on the countless experiences that had shaped her journey: the children's laughter, the vendors' generosity, the neighbors' hospitality, and the simple, everyday kindnesses that defined life in the Philippines. She understood that her heart had expanded in ways she could never have anticipated. In these months, she had become part of a narrative larger than herself, a story of cultural exchange, human connection, and emotional growth. She laughed more freely, embraced vulnerability, and approached life with an open heart. The blonde Ukrainian woman, once a stranger wandering the bustling streets of Manila, had transformed into a participant in a living story of kindness, resilience, and shared humanity. As night fell, she joined a street gathering where families shared dinner under strings of lights. Children danced, musicians played, and the aroma of grilled food filled the air. She laughed, cried, and marveled at the generosity and joy surrounding her. Every handshake, every smile, every shared story reinforced the truth she had discovered. The Filipino heart was vast, generous, and endlessly inspiring.